All right, here we go. Another best of three, but this time it's Maximillionaire versus Caradoc. He's won his first best of three, but it only gets more difficult from here. Will they be able to achieve victory? Let's see. We have a pretty new meta build. This is actually another fancy style Maximillionaire's been pushing for. It's a Manfred von Karstein build. So he's sick because he can run Buna and Invocation of Nahek. He's got Raised Dead, he's got Spirit Leech, he got the Double White King, pretty standard. Because it got Scab Scrat. Pretty standard zombie Crypt Horror tied over here too. Look at them all marching in unison. And he's going to be in a terrible matchup with the Vampire Counts. Because yes, Maximillionaire is going mono faction, which means they're going to get counterpicked into oblivion. And on the other side, it's going to be Caradoc's Slaanesh. Caradoc, very scary player too. A little bit more versatile, going for that counterpick style. And they got a giant Nakari. Usually you don't see legendary lords in this game, at least in multiplayer. But Nakari over here is going to be sick because they have a heal which triggers when a unit completely dies near them. And if you're against Vampire Counts, it's going to happen fairly often. What we got? Acquiescence, Witch Stealer Sword for mega damage. Acquiescence for mega damage. This is all like melee buffs and debuffs. So Nakari can basically snipe whoever they decide to face. Acquiescence on the Dire Pact, pretty cool too, reducing their melee defense to 0 and slowing them so they can get caught. But instead he goes for the other wolf unit because they decided to stop moving. Still though, fiends get countercharged and the fight is on. Now, first things first, win conditions. Unlike usual hype casting, I want to go over exactly what the players gotta do to achieve victory here. What tactical plays are being made? Well, Slaanesh is the faster faction, so they go more spread out. They're kind of contesting all the points at the same time. Because if a fight happens, it can consolidate and hammer one location. For the Vampire Counts, they're going a lot more consolidated. Everybody went onto the 1 point because they know if they split up and a unit that goes over here, it might look empty, but like if a Crypt Ghoul were to be summoned, they would just immediately get hammered by everything. And pain would surely ensue. Now, if Vampire Counts are doing that, they're not going to win the game. They only have 1 capture point. But the idea is that you slowly build up your army over time. And eventually it gets big enough to kind of encapsulate 2 points while also staying together. In the meantime, though, it's just going to be skirmishing back and forth. That's why we do see literal skirmishers over here in the form of Marauder Horsemen. They're going to be trying to poke at the Crypt Horrors. These guys do heal, though. So if entities aren't killed, it's not the best of trades. Still better than shooting at zombies, though. Nakari's trying to get some value. And obviously, Slaanesh has a little bit. Just a smidge of value so far. But nothing too crazy on either side. One dog maybe overextends, but they pull away. Very crisp micro on Maximillionaire's part. Slaanesh might still be able to catch him though. Caradoc doing pretty well. And pulling back before they charge into the fight. This is a game of patience. Vampire Counts do not have a lot of tickets. So Slaanesh can kind of take their sweet time to make sure that they uptrade. When you're a fast build against a slower build like this, if you don't uptrade, what ends up happening is your opponent very easily just camps on both points. And then you can't dislodge them. It's very, very rough. For the Vampire Counts, they can afford to downtrade a little bit. Nakari, by the way, going for the crazy snipe on the corpse cart. Using Willing Prey to delete its stats. It already had low stats. I don't even know if it needed the debuff. But this kind of guarantees the kill, which is going to be useful. The corpse cart is a centerpiece to this army. It's required to hold the fort. And with the dead, zombos and the like will be dying much faster. This is painful though. Seekers get summoned in only to be buned. This is why Manfred is so hyped. That is a 1,000 gold unit biting the dust. And another Seeker too, getting caught by the Black Knights with lances. Very rough. That's a extremely fast unit. You don't want it to be dying so quickly. Manfred also is a mana battery too. He has life leeching, but also his Sword of Unholy Power is going to keep him in the fight for a very long time. Or it's going to keep him in the magic fight for a very long time. It gives him power recharge and reserves just for grinding. Nakari did kill off that corpse card, by the way, poor thing. But now they're surrounded by Crypt Horrors. And Crypt Horrors are the high mass option that is supposed to bog them down. Some Fell Bats have arrived too. It's actually quite an interesting idea, but I guess they're here to rear charge the Hellstriders and maybe get them to break. With Slaanesh, you want to take quick and decisive fights and then disengage so that you can cycle charge again. But this ends up being a fairly nice catch for Maximilianaire. Bogs down the Hellstriders, bogs down the Fiends. And this play could potentially do it, but oh my goodness. Massive spell drops, although it didn't do as much damage as I thought it would. Basically just hitting some zombies, but the friendly fire of the Slongors is rough. Slaanesh is now down trading massively, by the way. That's a pretty bad sign, but they do secure this point. The problem, however, is it's going to take a few minutes for the tickets to go the way of Slaanesh. In a game of domination, you need to be able to secure, you need to be able to secure 1,500 tickets. Each point only gives 1 ticket per second. And that means Slaanesh is going to need to hold this for minutes. We're talking like 6 minutes, basically double the length of the battle. And by that time, if the trading is twice as extreme, if Maximilianer has a 4,000 gold lead, there's basically going to be nothing left for Slaanesh. Would be pretty brutal, but they're making a pretty good stand over here. Is this another... It is. Is it? No, what is that spell? It is. Another slicing charge does drop from the heavens. Maximilianaire knows the win conditions though. He knows he has to keep these infantry alive so they can secure this point, and actually dodges it. That's one of the main downsides of the spell. And it's pretty cool too that he's able to dodge with these very slow skeletons. Despite having 28 speed, if you do dodge immediately, it does work. And for Nakari, this is specifically why this style works so well, the Manfred Double White King. Because 3 fighters generally beat 1, even though Nakari can debuff 1 of them with their abilities. The other 2 are still gonna hammer in and do lots of damage. White Kings also have magic attacks, so they punch through that physical resist of Nakari. And ooh, Willing Prey gets dropped, but it's a double disengage. Very rough. Like I always say, the answer to buffs and debuffs is simply running away. That is also the answer to dodging a lot of spells too, by the way, like the slicing shards. And right now we're seeing some big counterage of Nakari's spells and abilities. Nakari has not really been able to do that much. Yeah, a few corpse cards have died. A few Crypt Horrors have taken some damage. But Nakari has not been able to get the work that they want to get done. They've yet to pay for themselves. They charge into the Crypt Horrors, trying to get something done, but that just leads to a counter charge. This is the song and dance of single entities. One charges in, but they get counter charged. So both sides can't really get a lot of value. Unless you get bogged down, the Crypt Horrors are fully surrounding Nakari now. And this is looking positively terrible for Slaanesh. What is usually an amazing matchup, getting turned upside down by the White King Manfred style. And the faction main appears to be doing pretty sick once again. Proving that, yes, you can defeat matchup imbalance with skill alone. Which is kind of crazy, but when you're really familiar with how the fight goes, you're expecting spells, you're expecting Nakari. And you can mix it up while your opponent's just going the standard counter. But the counter has been countered. Nakari is extremely low now. They'll have to try and farm up some value. There is a dying skeleton here, though. That's going to give the heal. It's pretty good to patch up Nakari a little bit. But if these points can't get secured, it's pretty dunzo. Slaanesh has like no units left. It's a mass rout over here. We have 2 units of horsemen with no ammunition. A Seeker of Slanesh. Now, Manfred probably doesn't have that many Bunas left, but they can't outgrind the undead. Slanesh is very good for their shock damage, but that's about it. They have to stay in the fight. It's pretty painful. Hikari, though, maybe picking off another skeleton, maybe even getting a pick on the White King. This would be nice if there were some infantry to summon in, and there is a little bit of money for Caradoc. Mayhaps they will be able to summon in something to secure these points. I will say they are holding this one pretty well. Vampire counts can't move there without risking getting split up. And they do bring in the Marauder Horsemen, which is very nice. Spirit Leech coming in. It's going to be nice versus Nakari, but that means fewer Bunas. And if more cavalry show up that don't get Buna'd, maybe Slanesh actually wins this. It's going to be difficult, though. As you can see, Vampire counts are pushing in quite aggressively onto this point. But with the army sizes smaller, you know, instead of having a huge front line like before, they're kind of going into pocket mode. They're bringing in the Mortis engine to hold this area. They're also bringing in the Corpse Cart. I feel like this transition is deadly, though. If this thing gets caught by Nakari, it could die. However, I believe the White Kings and Manfred should be able to defend it. Caradoc seeing a potential moment of opportunity, but yeah, he gets warded off by the White King Manfred special. Love to see this mobile hero squad. I know a lot of people don't like White Kings because they're quite strong, but this squad is not what you usually see. It's usually foot White Kings. A little bit of innovation from Maximilian there. Gets the catch on Nakari. And this looks like it's going to be double cap for the Vampire counts. There's still a very strong lead, but plays can still be made. Potentially some pickings over here, I see. Nakari's not out of the picture yet. And the Spirit Leeching ensures that there's less magic for Manfred. Actually, a fairly good slicing charge that time around, too. And it's going to be a play for point number 2. Now, right now, Capture Weight isn't here, but Slanesh is mobile. They've parked their forces here to draw in some Vampire Counts units. And if this doesn't go well, they can rotate around and just avoid fights as much as possible. Over yonder, Nakari going for more heals. Spirit Leech drops again. How much magic does Manfred have? I don't know. Counter charge on the dogs, by the way, very good. Cavalry, very, very good against dogs in general, just by charging. And there's that heal. I think. Yep. Nakari getting the heal.
One of your units has been destroyed.
More cavalry over here. Can they really pull it back, though? I'm kind of wondering. They've been able to maintain the value difference. It's stuck at 2,000, but there's a little bit of a problem. This isn't fully accurate. Mortis Engine is going to be healing up units. And because the army sizes are smaller, the 2,000 gold value difference means Slanesh, percentage-wise, the army is a lot smaller than the Vampire counts. They basically just have these two tiny pockets. And unless Nakari can get like a mega snipe on Manfred or something, he will eventually die to Spirit Leeches. And the moment that happens, the game's basically over. If Nakari decides to play safe, they won't be able to participate, and they're effectively dead anyways. A slow death. Fitting when you're playing against the Vampire counts. I feel like this is how most games go against them. And really, it's all about that DPS race. Now, even if this looks pretty one-sided for the counts, this was very hard fought. If the Vampire counts lost even like 1 or 2 Crypt Horrors extra by either misplaying with them or having them get caught by Nakari, or if a Slicing Charge was able to get like 1,000 gold value, this would be a completely different story. Because once the Vampire counts get too low on units, all they can do is blob up on 1 point, and Slanesh gets 2 easily. And given how close the tickets are, they definitely could have done that. Last Hail Mary play, by the way. As you get further behind, you should take riskier and riskier plays to try and come back. Because barely losing and losing heavily is the same thing. But barely winning is an amazing comeback. Unfortunately, the RNG does not go Nakari's way. Indeed, Manfred and a White King are very likely to just win there. And that's going to be the end of Slanesh. Nice first game to kick it off. Maximilianaire defeating the hard counter once again. But can they win
Is yours.
the next match? Like, even if they don't win the next match, at least they're getting rid of counters. Because we've seen Slanesh, but that means it can't be brought again in the next one. So by the third round, maybe it's a little bit more comfortable. Maybe people run out of ways to counter vampire accounts. I don't know. Manfred, by the way, insane. 4,000 value by hitting up the cavalry with the Buna. Nakari also getting a lot of value. But the problem was the Slongors just weren't cleaning up very much. And some cavalry getting caught out, being a down trade, is rough. Against counts, you basically want to just supremely uptrade with all your units. And Seekers against the Buna was definitely a misplay. The problem is you don't really have many other units to summon, so you're kind of forced to do it. It's a tricky situation. And that's going to lead us to game number 2. All right, and game number 2, this is crazy. Is that a Grand Cathay? He's bringing Grand Cathay to vampire accounts? In my head, either the guys run out of counters to vampire accounts already, and this would be his 4th best counter to the counts, or there's some secret sauce Caradoc has cooking. This is a nice way to throw faction mains off guard, by the way, because they're going to be way less practiced against these unconventional counters. And for Cathay, it's going to be a fairly standard infantry build. But the interesting thing is this. You see this Astromancer with no abilities? He's going for spell amplification. He's extremely cheap when you bring nothing. But he has Master of the Elemental Winds, which is a plus 15% spell amp on these characters. With Dragon's Breath, you can clear infantry. With Jade Shield, you can survive Spirit Leeches and Gazes of Nagash. You have the Alchemist with Final Transmutation to nuke hero squads. And even Plague of Rust to deal with cavalry. Fully spec'd out to deal with a variety of different issues. And for the vampire counts, what do we got? It's a Lamian Vampire Lord. It's 2 White Kings. We got Scab Scrath in case we see some unarmored infantry. And a Black Coach. Give me a second. A Black Coach? This guy's got the Black Coach. Maximilianaire with the unorthodox strategies. The Manfred one is kind of new meta, but still meta. Black Coach, on the other hand, widely regarded to be one of the worst chariots in the game. We'll keep an eye on it. It can work pretty well for its armor piercing against heavily armored factions, but still a little sketchy. Good Dragon Breath, by the way, on the current race. Cathay already taking a pretty nice lead. Oh, but the zombie summon? Was that from her? It is. Body blocking the characters in the forest where they're slowed down too. That might actually just be the play. Where are those shots coming from, though? Oh, they actually are in range. That's crazy. But yeah, this lady gets completely bogged down by the zombies. Very nice little tactic over there. And this could just lead to a blunder. That was a max range zombie summon. Just parking them over there. Oh my goodness, she's getting massacred. Good surround, by the way, too, to make sure she doesn't escape. Her path is blocked, so she has to run deeper into the trees to escape. But that only leads to death or routing off the map. The Black Coach, I believe, does have Strider, so it doesn't care about the trees. The White Kings do not have Strider, but it doesn't matter. The Lord is dead. Just like that. You gotta be careful. The Killer Instinct and the Lord is donezo. Always love to see Killer Instinct on high-level players. They will punish you for any and all misplays. And in this case, it didn't even feel like a misplay. He just wasn't ready for that zombie summon. They're just celebrating, by the way. They'll be crumbling in about 20 seconds, so there's not really much that they can do. Just chilling, you know, maybe they'll walk towards the enemy line or something, but they'll be out before you know it. Still survive longer than that Lord, though. I believe some cabbage would also survive longer than that Lord. She went down quickly. And Maximilianaire only has to take a strong fight now. Knowing that the Lord is dead, oh my goodness. They're going for the big plays now. With the giant pendulum on these Jade Warriors. I believe that was overcast. In previous days, it would have one-shot all this infantry. Nowadays, magic has been nerfed. Lord dead penalty, -10, but Harmony keeping them in the fight, barely. Are we going to see Cathay hold? This was a very rough start, but maybe they can resummon their Lord. Maybe the formation can hold, but without the Lord, they don't have mass. The Black Coach is massacring the infantry. And what's he gonna do? Summon some Jade Lancers? That puts you behind because you don't get your Lord. And eventually, the long grind is gonna go the way of the Vampire Counts if your units can't hold. Harmony bonuses can only go so far. But that usually brings them into near unbreakable territory. Without that without that 10 leadership, they are very much breakable. Look at how low these guys are already. One rear charge could potentially rout them off with the terror routes. And the zombie summons are completely crushing it. Lamian Lord goes for another snipe on the Alchemist. And now we're seeing just quadruple threat. Crypt Horrors breaking the line here. Caster going down over here. Zombie summons to bog down the archers, and you're just getting the vibe that there isn't enough for Cathay. There's just not enough. Now they've resummoned their Lord. That can deal with maybe one of the front lines and clear some infantry. That's not going to be too pretty. Cathay's certainly going to have a lot to come back here. Are we going to see anything? I don't know if we're going to see anything. This is just a devastating position. This, any Vampire Counts matchup tends to be long and grindy too. So if you don't maintain that lead, things get pretty sketchy. There's the breath attack though, finally. Karen Raid's taking a lot of damage. That's going to stabilize this, but what about the triple threat? Bombers for Cathay are still bogged down. Yes, they have a few range units firing in now, but where's that Black Coach? Just happily running through. Gets Heaven's Flash, so its stats suck now, but its charge bonus is still 60. So it's still going to have an insane amount of melee attack. And now it charges into the back of these Jade Warriors. Very nice maneuver play on this Black Coach. An extremely high micro unit, by the way, that I am still not used to. You basically need to constantly keep it moving, because anytime it sits still, it's not really doing much. Oh my gosh, this is another Lord Snipe. It's going for another Lord Snipe. Dragon Blooded Shugengen Lord. Remember, there's still no Jade Lancers. He's been summoning in other units. Saving up for the Iron Claw Warriors, by the way. Pretty nifty if the other situations were fine, but things are not going well. And now the hunt is on. Engagement over here has kind of gone to a stalemate. We do have the Corpse Cart Unholy Lodestone over here, keeping things together though. Final Transmutation drops. Okay, that's pretty good. Is that an upcasted? It is, but here's the problem. Maximilianer with the spell dodging again. And the Scepter of Stability with the spell resist. Not only does she Batman the nuke away from the rest of her units, she also keeps herself alive with the spell resistance. The Final Transmutation, by the way, is a spell that is not sticky. A phrase a term I bring up for spells, in that it is dodgeable. You know, it sticks onto the Lord, but units that initially get hit by it, if they leave the bubble, they will no longer take damage. Stuff like Soul Stealer from the Dark Elves is sticky. After it hits you, there's no deblobbing. And knowing this will help you dodge for sure. Scab Scrat doing a lot of damage versus these guys, by the way. Late Jade Shield, but Scab Scrat hits too fast for you to reactively Jade Shield. Another decent breath attack. And Cathay is bringing it back a little bit. They got the double Peasant Horseman to steal some points, and they need that. We haven't been bringing up tickets, but in the wise words of Loco, in a game of Warhammer Total War, the win condition is to get to 1,500 tickets. And right now, man oh man is Cathay behind. Not only would they need a double cap to stop bleeding out, they're gonna need to push all the way to point number 3, and that's quite a distance. In the time it takes to walk to point number 3, they might lose out on tickets, especially if they don't get this. And oh my goodness, they don't. Maximilianer with the support. This is the worst feeling, by the way, because not only do you lose the fight, you lose the point. There was no point fighting here if you were gonna lose anyways, but Maximilianer, I've played against them a lot before. They're really good at squeezing out situations like that where you think you get the point and then they barely defend it. Wonderful vampire accounts play again, and they're going to be moving up the bracket. I feel like we've been glazing their vampire accounts play, but it's always very fun to see. I think basically everyone says getting counterpicked is a lot more difficult than counterpicking yourself. I will say Cathay is not the perfect counter, but I do wonder. You know, Caradoc wasn't able to pull it off, but there are some players like Berserk who also play vampire counts and know a ton of counters. Like, Berserk will totally bring out the filth, and I wonder if Maximilianaire will have a solution to that. Croman did not do great. Tiger Warriors did not do great. Unfortunately, Cathay is just generally not super well suited to beat counts. They have some tools, yes, but especially clearing the zombie summons, it's just rough. It was nice seeing the counterplay to the Karen Wraiths, by the way. I love that before Maximilianaire was telling me how bad they were, but he's finally found their niche. It's kind of like Danican looking at making Executioners viable and then making them viable against Vampire Count specific, actually. Wonder if we'll see that matchup. White Kings did okay. They weren't really here to kill. They're here mostly to bring capture weight, and they absolutely got the job done. Oh my goodness. And the Black Coach got 2,000 value. Insanity. I wonder if we'll be seeing some more crazy shenanigans. Counterpicks to the counterpicks like this. More Black Coach, more Karen Wraith action. Should be fun. But that's going to be Maximilianaire moving up in the bracket. And I hope to see you guys next time for more interesting matches. Next up will not be Maximilianaire, but the other side of the bracket.